It's your boy, Calix Boxing. Hit that sub button for nightly boxing videos. And let me turn my mic on. Mic turned off real quick. Hold on, bear with me here. Check 1, 2. And there it is. And we are fully live. Let me get the screen back up. Like I said, hit that sub button for nightly boxing videos. And thanks for all the support. And the chat is open. So feel free to leave comments if you're watching this live. Errol Spence Jr. dispatched of Leonard Bundo today on NBC, and it did huge ratings, as I talked about in the previous video. So if you haven't seen that one, go watch that one. Talked about the ratings and broke the PBC ratings record. So shout out to Errol Spence Jr. for that, and hopefully his trajectory continues to move up and they keep this guy active. Now, speaking of that, he's supposed to, now that he beat Bundo, he's supposed to get a shot at Kell Brook, who did not vacate his belt. He's moving up to fight Gennady Golovkin, but he didn't vacate that belt. Now, here's how this is going to work. Kell Brook fights September 10th against Gennady Golovkin. After the fight, win or lose, he has 10 days to notify them if he wants to fight his mandatory Errol Spence Jr. or not. He has to get back to them within 10 days. If he gets back to them and says, I'm not vacating my belt, I'm going to keep my belt, he's ordered to fight Errol Spence Jr. And by October 26th, they have to enter into negotiations with Errol Spence Jr. to get that fight done for later on that year. Now, that's not going to happen. Kell Brook is not going back down to 147. I'm telling you now, I would be surprised if he goes back down to 147. I think he's having problems making 147. I think that's one of the reasons he moved up. As everybody always says, he's a big welterweight. I think he's having problems making welterweight, and I don't see him going back down to 147. I definitely don't see him going back down to 147 to fight Errol Spence Jr. Errol Spence Jr. is not a guy people are going to go out of their way to fight. His name recognition does not match his level of difficulty of a fight yet to where you would get that fight. So I think Kell Brook is going to go to 154 after this fight. I really believe that. So I don't think you're going to see Errol Spence Jr. versus Kell Brook. My big thing, though, is I think you can still make good fights with Errol Spence Jr. at 147. He's a PBC fighter. You got a handful of PBC fighters at the top 10 of welterweight division to pick from. All right, I got a list of them here. Keith Thurman. He can fight Keith Thurman. He can fight Danny Garcia. He can fight Sean Porter. He can fight Lamont Peterson. If he wants to go even lower on the pecking order, right outside the top 10, and maybe a notch higher, maybe a small notch higher than his last two fights, probably on the same level, to be honest. He could go with Andre Berto or Robert Guerrero, but I don't see why he can't fight those top four guys I just mentioned: Keith Thurman, Danny Garcia, Porter, or Peterson. Those are PBC fighters. Here's the thing I don't understand about the PBC. They said when this started, we're not going to worry about belts. We're not worried about titles. We're not even going to mention them before fights. We're not even going to bring the belts in the ring. We're not going to allow any of that stuff, blah, 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 blah. But they're so worried about Errol Spence Jr. and this IBF belt. They're so hell-bent about this, like there aren't other belts out there and like there aren't other fights out there. He fought Bundu because the IBF ordered it. To hell with the IBF. There are other rankings you can climb up. There are other fights out there. You don't need a belt to leverage your way into big fights because you have the same manager as these other fighters. See what I'm saying? It's not like Errol Spence Jr. needs this IBF belt to leverage himself into other fights with other title holders to condense these belts. He has Al Haymon in his corner. Al Haymon manages these other fighters. Errol Spence Jr. just broke the PBC ratings record. So he's got a little bit of leverage himself. He's an up-and-coming fighter. He's a super talented fighter. So there are other guys he can fight. And I just mentioned them. So if Errol Spence Jr. versus Kell Brook falls through for whatever reason, there are other fights. And they're probably more aesthetically pleasing fights than Errol Spence Jr. versus Kell Brook, to be quite honest. Kell Brook isn't the most exciting guy to watch fight. So there are other guys who will put themselves in a little more danger against Errol Spence Jr. Make Errol Spence Jr. look better if that's the guy you're trying to build up for the future. Errol Spence Jr. is the type of fighter with the talent, and he seems to be a little more aggressive than fighters who are as technically sound as he is. He's the type of guy who can sort of fill a vacuum of these guys who are retiring on, like the Mayweathers, Pacquiao's, or whatnot. He seems to have a bit of a talent. We'll see as the years go on. But people are always worried about, will the pay-per-view stars, will there be another group of guys come up and fit? There always is. Yes, the pay-per-view backlash is very real right now. People are boycotting the pay-per-view market. They're not into it right now. But who's to say a couple of years from now that won't change? There will be other stars in boxing. There will always be stars who come up and fill those voids. And guys like Errol Spence Jr., guys like Chocolatito are guys who are talented enough, so it seems right now, to fill that void in the future. But we'll see. We'll see will they keep these guys active? Will they make smart business decisions? But not only make smart business decisions, will they put themselves in positions to rise their stock inside of the ring? Because we've seen guys like the Andre Wards, like the Danny Garcias, completely spoil that, completely mess up any momentum they had. So will Errol Spence Jr. go down that route, or will he go down the other route, the more aggressive route, and stay busy, stay knocking guys out, and stay looking talented? I think I lean towards more of that, because I think Errol Spence Jr. seems more ambitious hearing the guy talk than these other guys I mentioned. But we'll see. If Errol Spence Jr. versus Kell Brook doesn't happen, which I don't think it will, I think Kell Brook goes up to 154. Guess what? There are other fights out there. Stop worrying about the damn belts and the damn mandatories, and make the best fights. There are fights to make here. Hit me up. Let me know what y'all think about this. Peace.